Okay, let's talk about the verification plan. Now, generally when we plan for our verification, we keep these three things in our mind. Now, these three things are what to verify, how to verify, and when to conclude. Now, when I start my verification, I should know what all features I am going to verify, what all things that I need to test. Now, after that, the second point will be how I am going to verify these features, what kind of basically things I am going to use, what verification language I am going to use, what methodology I should use. So basically that will be really important, because if you don't choose right things for verification, you end up spending more time, and again basically you won't do the perfect verification. So once you have decided what all features I need to verify, and you have decided how all those features I am going to verify, but then you should be able to say at what point I should stop, when should I say my verification is complete. So we should create our planning based on these three things. So let's talk about the different constituents of verification plan. What all things we need to put up in our verification plan. So how we start our verification plan is we get the spec from designer. So first thing we do is we read the functional specification. Once we have read the functional specification, we capture all the feature lists, what all features are there that we are going to verify. We create a test list based on those features. Basically we write down all these things in form of a doc that we call as a verification plan. So all these things we need to write into one document, we call it verification plan. And once we have written our all test cases, basically test case lists, that okay, these are tests which you need to create, we extract the assertions, kind of protocol related checks that we need to write. So list of all these checks we write into that document. Then choice of methodologies, this is basically in what how this is the second part which says how am I going to do my verification. Then we have data integrity checks, which is checker lists, like I gave input and what kind of output I am expecting for that particular scenario, what kind of checks I needed. So all those checkers I need to write down. Okay, these are the checkers I need to implement. Then I extract the cover points, functional coverage from that design specification, and I write down all these cover points. Okay, these are the cover points I need to code and I need to cover. Then we have code coverage part. Now in the for different design we have different target. There are different type of code coverage, but we may not decide okay, I need to do all these different kind of code coverage. I can decide for this particular design only this selected code coverage is okay. I should be okay with that. Now then I decide the targets for my coverage. I mean when I should be able to close my coverage, when I should be able to tell my verification will be complete. So I decide certain targets. Okay, for this particular module my code coverage target should be 90% and my functional coverage target should be 100%. I mean generally we try to make it 100%. Most of the time the target, I mean ideally it should be 100%, but I mean achieving that 100% is really difficult. So we decide appropriate target into verification plan. So we create a document, and this is the document which we review with the designer and our team, and we start our verification based on this particular document. We create environment, we create test cases, whatever things we add, I mean it will be based on this particular verification plan. Okay, so let's look at the different components of verification environment. Now this is a typical verification environment where we have different components. I mean it covers mostly all the components, but sometimes you can just skip one or two components and you can do your verification depending your complexity of your design. So here we have generator, transactor, driver. Then we have this is our DUT. So we connect driver to that input side, and output of that we monitor through the monitor. We have assertion related checks, scoreboard, then we have checkers, then we have coverage collector. So we'll see one by one what exactly generator, what is driver, what it does, and what we do in the monitor, what we do in the checker. So we'll go one by one for each and every component. Okay, let's talk about generator. So as the name itself says, it generates. So basically generator generates stimulus which we send to DUT. Now after generator we have seen, so generator generates, then we have driver, that particular stimulus is sent to DUT by driver. Now generator generates stimulus based on our specification. For example, let's say we have ALU. Now ALU has got two operands. In our specification says it has two operand, data A, data B, and it has some third thing called operation. So our generator should be able to generate data A, data B in operation, an operation which we are going to perform on data. So that will be a task for our generator. Now stimulation generation can be directed, or you can say constrained random, or it can be fully random, which call it automatically. Okay, we have done, okay, written data A, data B, let tool decide what all values it is going to generate. But if you are going for directed or constrained random, user should have proper controllability from his test case. Now from test case he should be able to control. Now different languages have different construct to control. So like in system Verilog, it provides construct to control system distribution and order of generation. You can control while generating, either I should generate data A first or I should generate data B first. So those kind of control you can find in verification languages. And from when you say generator, we should be able to test the negative part of our design also. Now we should be able to inject errors to the test and the behavior of duty of for error scenario. So basically by injecting error we should be able to test, okay, what happens when I give some invalid inputs to my DUT. I mean, when something is unexpected goes to DUT, how DUT reacts. So those kind of scenarios I should be able to create through generator. Okay, now next is driver. After generator we have driver. Now the driver translates the operation produced by generator into the actual inputs for the design under verification. Now when generator generates, it doesn't worry about how these particular inputs are going to be driven on the DUT, because at the DUT input side we actually have wires, and at wires we sometimes, okay, we don't put everything on the wires at the same time. It's like there are certain timings related to inputs. Okay, once input A should come, and after so many cycles the input B should come. So those kind of timing relationships are there at the input side. So all these timings and protocol related stuff is being taken care by this driver. So and again, for this driver it should be able to communicate with the other components also, like scoreboard. So basically it should be able to perform inter-process communication. Now we will see why this communication is really important when we come to the scoreboard or monitor, because you are driving something, but somebody should be able to know what exactly is going on the input side of that if I want to know. So basically that particular communication should be there from the driver side. So basically driver should handle that. He should not say, okay, I am driving this and I don't want to tell anyone what am I driving. Okay, next component is scoreboard. Now what scoreboard does is, from the generator we generate something, and so basically when we generate we have certain inputs which are going to give to the DUT. Now when we after generation we pass these particular inputs to scoreboard also. So what scoreboard does is, it's kind of tracker. Whatever you are going to giving to the inputs, we pass it to a scoreboard, and scoreboard maintains this data into dynamic array, or some as dynamic array, or in system Verilog we have queues also. So basically it will put the input data on the queue, and whenever it gets output from that, again it will put that bit data into the output data queue, and it can communicate with the data checker. You can pass input data and output data once both the data it has got to the data checker, and data checker can perform data checks. And sometimes, I mean, it's what it can have is it can have it. We can put the logic in scoreboard also. Whatever that is doing, you can implement that into scoreboard itself. Okay, I have received this input from generator. If I put if logic is really simple, if I don't need any reference model for that, so basically you put everything into scoreboard itself and take that input, perform some operation on that, and you get your output. And once your output you have received from that side, again you compare whether it's correct or not. So by doing that, basically what you are doing is you are pulling that checker inside scoreboard itself, checker scoreboard itself, and you are modeling this reference model. You don't need this reference model parallel to that if it is very simple actually, but generally for complex designs we have a separate reference model which we give parallel with the DAT. When you give input to the DAT, you pass those inputs to reference model also. So reference model performs its own operation and gives output, and again whatever you get from that output you compare against the reference model output in the scoreboard or in data checkers. Now next is assertions. So assertions are statements which expect the design to behave in certain way and evaluate it to true or false. So we have certain behavior of design. Now through assertion basically we write that behavior in terms of statement. Okay, I have input A and B. A and B should not be, let's say I have something called like A and B should not be 0 together. So I can write that particular behavior of design in statement form. So there are language construct, like we'll see shortly how we write that into system Verilog. So we write that thing into a statement form, and this statement is being evaluated as a true or false. So if it is true, I mean I'm okay. If it is false, I have some trouble. There is something wrong going on. So basically these assertions are mainly used for protocol checkers. And again this is for behavior of validation of that our design behavior. So whenever some scenario makes assertion boolean expression false, assertion will get fired and error is reported immediately. Now the writing of this assertion can be either at RTL level and TB level. So why when designer writes RTL, he can think of certain cases like, okay, while writing he expects some signal A should not be high before some signal B. That is his expectation. So those kind of expectations designer can embed in RTL itself, and there are certain pragmas which he can put, and though basically those assertion part won't go into our actual synthesis part when he synthesize the RTL. And in TB level, of course, I can write assertion, but as we have seen that okay, assertions are mainly for protocol related checks. So generally it's always good idea, either if you don't have very large list of assertions, you put those assertions into interface itself, because in interface you have declared all the wires, all the connectivity related wires you have put into the interface itself. So basically writing, if it is list is very small, I mean if your list is very big, it's always advised okay you create a separate module for assertions and then you bind it. So that's a really good practice. Now let's take example of assertions, how we actually write assertion in terms of a statement. Let's say I have one statement. Let's say request must be high until egg becomes high. So in SC I can write it something like this. So I say request when request becomes 1, or I can say again $rows is another construct which say rising edge of request. So this is the implication operator in system Verilog. It says request is high, then you wait for egg from 1 to, so this is at the this is for end. So you wait for egg. and until I comes you keep request high. So in this way you can write all these behaviors of your design in statement form, and this can be evaluated as a true or false. If it is true, I am good. If it is false, it's not good. You need to check your design. I mean, you need to report designer, okay, this is not working properly, you need to fix it. Okay, now what are advantages of assertions? Now assertions improve observability. Now through assertions you can easily observe what, where and what is going wrong. So by doing that, basically it reduces the debug time. It helps finding bugs earlier. So basically, for the good thing for a session is, as soon as error comes, it will immediately flag it, and you have option to stop the simulation, or maybe you can continue for some time. But basically, it reduces debug time drastically, and you can give appropriate messages why this session failed. So basically, debug time is really less if you implement your checkers through assertions. And another good feature about this is you can control severity levels. You have written some assertions, but you can say, okay, as of now this assertion is being fired, but I want to ignore it as of now. Later on we are going to fix it. So you can just reduce the severity level. Okay, let's make it warning from error. So those kind of things you can do with the assertion. And again, I mean, this is so all these sessions, they describe whatever specification in the documentation is there. It's a really a nice way of describing your functional specification in terms of language statement. Okay, monitor and data checkers. So till now we have seen generator. From generator, data is being passed to driver. From driver, it drives to on DAT, and from that we get to the scoreboard, and then we have input and output from the connect wires of that we have assertions, basically protocol related checks. Then now we look at the monitor and data checker. Now what monitor does is, monitor basically monitors the buses of DAT, and it provides collected data to checkers, reference model, and coverage collector, and to our scoreboard. So basically it's kind of data collector. It collects data and it gives to other components. So that's what is monitor do. And monitors can be active or passive. So basically sometimes monitors will just sit there and it will collect the data. It won't do anything. Or based on that collected data, or it can just collect and it will just pass to somebody else. Other than that, it won't do anything. But sometimes what it can do is it will collect the data, and we can say, okay, this data is being collected. So basically sometimes based on the data you can do something in monitor itself, and again, okay, trigger some events. So that kind of things you can do in monitor, which says, okay, when your monitor is no longer passive, it's an active monitor. So whatever data monitor collects, so at the collection side it will be on basically pin level. So generally these monitors will convert the pin level data into higher level abstracted form, which will be like transaction level. So basically I do one read or write on the wires, it will be in form of like enable and all those stuff, and you can convert from all these pin level activities into transaction level. You can say refer, okay, if enable is 1 on the bus level, I can say it is read enable is 1, I can say it is read. So those can, in the form of transaction you can convert, and you can pass those that particular information to another components. Now data checkers will ensure the correctness of data. Now whatever is coming out of that, we expect, okay, the same thing should be out of whatever is coming from the out of reference model, we expect same thing should be out of our DAT also. So we just compare output of these two, and we say my data, my DUT is working fine. So that kind of check we put into data checkers, and generally these data checkers we put in scoreboard itself. We don't create a separate component called, okay, this is my data checker, until unless it's a really complex thing. I mean, based on that input, we need to wait for some time, or like do so some other things. So mostly put that into scoreboard itself, this kind of data checkers, because in scoreboard we maintain the queues for input and output. As soon as output comes and input is already there, so we pass that input to our reference model, get output from there, and compare output of that and reference model. So that's how we do data checks. Okay, next important part on our functional verification flow is functional coverage. Now this functional coverage is defined by user in verification plan. When we create our verification plan, that point itself we decide what kind of points we are going to cover while doing our verification. Now why we actually need this functional coverage? We can we create test cases for the features which will target, okay, I'm creating some test case which will target this particular feature and it will cover this. Basically when say this particular feature, if it is covering, I can say okay, this is covering certain points. Now we created certain test case for certain feature and we have run it and our RTL is passed. RTL says test case RTL is okay with that, and the verification environment says test case is passed. Now but we won't know whether whatever test case we have created, which has actually tested that particular feature. How we say that okay, I created some test case for this feature, I have run this test case and it says okay. How I make sure that this whatever test case I have created for that feature and I have run on RTL, it is actually for that particular feature. So for that actually we use a functional coverage. So basically it shows the quality of stimuli. Whatever stimuli you have created, it's actually good, or it is bad, or it is kind of medium, it is not exercising everything, or it is exercising everything. So to know that, we create a functional coverage. So basically this functional coverage provides the measure of completeness of our design and verification. So now if you look at the system Verilog, it offers two separate mechanisms for functional coverage. One is property based coverage, we say cover directive. So basically property is a separate different thing in system Verilog, where we write whatever assertions we write in terms of property, because assertion I already said that they when we write the design behavior in terms of statements. So basically if we cover those particular assertion statements, we are covering certain design behavior, design features. Then the next is sample based coverage, we say cover group based coverage. So basically we write cover groups. So there are different construct in system Verilog language and other verification language, whichever we are using based on our verification methodologies. So sample based coverage, basically tool will we write that cover groups in SV or whatever verification language you are using, and tool will basically monitor whether those particular points are being hit or not, and based on that we can decide. Now there are three types of cover group points. One we call as item, then we second one is cross, and we say transitional. We'll see one by one. Item, what is item, what is cross, and what is transitional coverage, functional coverage. Now in your introductory part you just got an overview of functional things, and now we will go into detail of what exactly is functional coverage, and we will see more things about that. Now let's talk about item. Now item is used to capture the information about the scalar value. A range of interested value can also be observed in that. So either you can say I have input A, what all values I am interested for A. So I can write the statement using verification language, and my tool will try to cover that. So for example, I can say my ALU has 4 operations which are selected by 0, 1, 2, 3. Now I can write one cover group like cover point. So this is the way we write in system Verilog. You will learn about these things when you go about system Verilog section. So I have one cover point, let's say operation select. This is we call as item operation. This is one cover point. Now when I run one test case, in one test case, so it is expected, okay, I am interested in the 4 values of operation select, but in one test case I have done only one operation. So when you run the test case and you try to find out what all operations I have run, it will say, okay, only let's say operation 0 and 1 you have exercised, 2 and 3 you have not exercised. So maybe your intention was, okay, in one test case I will cover everything, but somehow for typo or something you just covered 0, 1, 2, 3 are not getting covered. So from your side you said, okay, I am covering 0, 1, 2, 3, but now if you don't have these cover points you won't be able to know whether my 2, 3 are covered or not. So that's really good thing about this coverage things. So basically they will tell, okay, what all things you have not done you need to do, or you have made some mistake. Now next is cross. So cross is used to examine the cross product of 2 or more item coverage points. So cross is nothing but you have two different items. Now you want to see what all possible combinations are there with item 1 and item 2. Let's take one example. Now let's say you have one data. For that you want to say whether I have make the all operations for corner case, let's say 0 and FF. Let's say I have 8-bit data. For that corner cases will be like when data is, what happens when data is 0 and what happens when all bits of data are 1. Now you want to check that. Now if you create your test case and you put random there, now you need to make sure that these particular things are being hit. So for that again I create my cover points, operation select, and then data, and for that 0 and 511 is nothing but FF. So those bins I have created. Now I want to make sure I have performed all the operations for corner cases also. So for that what I will do is I will say cross operation select with data, and tool will take care of after that. So when you do the analysis you will see whether all possible combinations from operation select and data are being covered or not. I mean the crosses between these two are being covered or not. So basically let's say my operation select is 0, so I should be able to cover 0 with all 3. Then operation select is 1, I should be able to cover 1 with all three types of data. So all those scenarios should be covered. So those things we'll put under the cross, whatever is our requirement we put it here. Next is transition cover points. Now in your design you want to see, you want to check, sometimes in design you will say, okay, this particular input takes a sequence of values. Let's say my input A takes value A 1 in one cycle, next cycle it becomes 2, or another next cycle becomes 3, or output side you get results something like that. Okay, my A should be 4, then it should go to 5, then it should go to 6. So basically it should be in increment fashion. So whether I'm covering all the transitions or not, so that if I want to cover, so for that there are ways to write cover points in functional coverage. So we can put that in this kind of statement where you cover transitions, okay, whether my values are being transitioned from 4, 5, 6, 7 or okay. Next is code coverage. Now functional coverage side we have seen that, okay, it is user defined. User defines the functional coverage which will test the functionality, which will cover the functionality of our design. Now the code coverage side, code coverage is measure to describe the degree by which design code has been exercised. Now this is something which is related to the code which designers have written. Now to collect the code coverage, user doesn't need to write any extra things. I mean, user as a verification engineer, I don't need to do any extra thing on the code coverage side. So it is automatically collected by the simulation tool like Questa, IUS, VCA. These are tools when you run simulation using these. So there are certain switches you need to pass to these tools, and automatically this code coverage will be enabled, and tool will perform that collection part. So it will analyze that code of whatever code designer has written, and it will do the code coverage analysis. it will dump the code coverage data. Analysis part either designer or verification engineer has to do. Now there are different types of code coverages. Now remember I told you while creating the verification plan, okay, while verification plan itself we need to decide what kind of code coverage we are going to cover in our verification. So there are different types of code coverage type. Now one is statement or line coverage, block or segment coverage, we have conditional, branch coverage, path coverage, toggle coverage, and state machine coverage. So we'll see one by one what all these different types are. Okay, statement and line coverage. So easiest understandable type of coverage, it must be 100% for every DUT. If for example let's say there are 10 lines in DUT code and 8 lines are getting exercised by test bench stimuli, then statement coverage is of 80%. Now it's like designer has written his code, and when you run your test cases, it is possible that all lines are when simulator has not gone through the all lines of that particular code, so it will report what all lines it has not gone through. So let's say out of 10 line it has gone through only 8 lines, so other 2 lines it has not gone. So basically that kind of, after the analysis you need to find out, okay, why it has not covered these 2 lines, whether those are redundant or we need to do something else to cover those 2 lines. Now next is block or segment coverage. Now block coverage considers the branched blocks like if else, case branches, and for example let's say I have here one if statement, inside this I do something, again one more if statement, inside I do something. Now these are blocks. Now for block coverage, tool will say this particular block is not covered, this particular block is covered or not covered. So it will, in place of line by line, it will put all these things into blocks. Now statement and this block are kind of same thing, right? If